I have my studio guests all set. Kweku Kwarteng is a member of parliament for Obuasi West. He's a member of the MPP. He's in the studio. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, George Lowe. He's a member of parliament for North Dying. He's a member of the NDC. Thanks for joining me. You guys on recess?
Yes.
When are you coming back?
On the 3rd.
Oh, that's next week?
Yes.
Next week, Tuesday, Monday?
I think Tuesday, normally. I've been worried about whether it's Tuesday or not.
Okay.
I think it's the 3rd.
Kweku Kwarteng, you've been around talking a lot about...
Yeah, I've been disturbed by events in my own constituency.
So let me use that as an opening.
Okay.
Is it the mining, or it's all related to mining? Is it the disaster?
No, it's a mining. It's a mining.
Anglo Gold Ashanti.
Anglo Gold Ashanti.
Wanted to cut over 2,000 jobs. We're told now 4,000.
Yeah, something and we don't have the exact figures yet, but AGA has a worker population of 4,300, and some 90 or 85% of those workers are going to be seen off. But we have to add that it's supposed to be a temporary measure, and that after some 2 years, the company would have finished the restructuring that has made those redundancy arrangements necessary, and that after that, the company would re-engage. But as we indicated in the statement, nobody really knows the future. We wish the company well. I definitely want them to succeed. It is when they succeed in that they can play their role as they have always been, development partners for the community. And so we wish them well. But we are sensitive to the fact that nobody knows tomorrow. And therefore, what's happening in Obuasi cannot be pleasant. But I personally am more worried about this because it's not just in Obuasi. The difficulties our companies and industries are going through are all over the place. Okay,
but let's get the issue of the mining companies in perspective. I guess internationally on the commodities market, gold prices have not been doing so well as it is, and so on. So
yeah, that's true. And in the past, we've been at lower levels than we are now in terms of gold prices. Our companies were able to withstand those difficulties because the internal policy environment was not as harsh as it is now. And when I say harsh, I'm talking about the deteriorating value of our cedi, for instance. It makes imports very expensive. Domestic interest rates are high, very high, and therefore, naturally, the slightest external shock will throw you off guard. That is what appears to be happening right now. And all that is added, this misfortune of erratic power supply. And for industry, the power supply is not just erratic, but it's also very expensive. You know, industry pays far more than we the other consumers pay. All these factors have come together to create difficult situations for our companies. And specifically in Obuasi, the cost of power and the deteriorating value of the cedi are very important factors in the cost build-up of AGA, and subsequently the inability of the company to operate profitably. And that is why we called on government to respond to this national difficulty. The government cannot look on. Tema Chemicals Limited last month indicated it to be laying off 400 workers. Super Paper Products Tema is gone. Now you go to Tema is a pale shadow of its once industrial self. Somebody ought to be sensitive to this in government and to lay out a clear plan for doing this. And I hate to draw this into important, almost technical discussions like this, but when government is wasting so much money in many areas, you look at the Auditor General's report, you look at the payments to Suba, we can go into that, and I only get the impression that is a commitment and political will that is not there, and that if government wants to it can intervene and it must intervene.
I wanted to ask you whether politically also it's in your benefit to make some of these arguments when especially the economy is facing challenges across board and elsewhere beyond our borders also within the extractive industry, especially when it comes to mining, there are extreme difficulties that from South Africa to a number of the mining firms in Australia, etc. There are difficulties that are being experienced, but we'll come to that as well. Yes, of course, you make an input. What do you make of it, especially for AGA, laying off workers in a community which thrives around mining in itself, that you should say is going to have a negative toll on the economic life of Obuasi and its environment?
Well, thank you, and good morning to our cherished viewers. I think that my brother Kweku has put out the issues, and the issues are real. But I think that the answer is there for all of us to see. I think that you make the point when you say that, first and foremost, let's look at it. It's a global phenomenon. Nobody can isolate what is happening in Obuasi and say that that is the doing of some government or anything. I mean, across board, gold, as you've identified, they themselves, Ashanti Gold themselves, are blaming the depreciating prices of gold as one of the key reasons why they have to downsize. But you know, when it used to be Ashanti Goldfields Corporation, I remember when Mr. Jonah, Dr. Sam Jonah was chief executive, they had employees in excess of 10,000. Yes. And today, if they are about 4,000, it tells you that over time, a lot of things have gone on. One of the key issues that you see, we should understand that we have been mining Obuasi for many years. Things cannot continue. It's been over 100 years. Yes, it cannot continue to be the same standard over the years. And it happens to all mining concessions in the world. Coupled with the fact that we cannot pretend that we do not know that now also there are the energy challenges. And I think that Kweku, but again, when Kweku talks about government must intervene, I don't know in which area my brother wants government to intervene, because to the best of my knowledge, and it is all there for all of us to see, Obuasi, government has bent backwards, trying to fix the energy challenges that we have. There are several projects going on simultaneously. We have, luckily, we've even gotten a NIDA grants approved, and about $500 million is going to go into energy. General Electric and all other companies are being brought on. Some of the challenges we have, for instance, with the buoy having to be shut, it's simply because the water levels are dropped. And that cannot be the doing of any government. This is not the first time we've had energy crisis, particularly with our hydro. Okay? Because when the water, I mean, the president, for instance, is not a rainmaker, where he's going to conjure rain to fall in there. But for me, the good thing is that we realize or we recognize that there is a problem with our energy, and we are doing everything possible to fix it. I can name several things that are on stream. And presidents are giving us a firm commitment.
Kweku makes a very firm argument that there's no clear-cut plan.
No.
That has been adequately communicated, not only to the public, but to the industry. Needed stakeholders. And the needed stakeholders are industry, you, the political elite, you need to know, and whether it's the academia and those who do the various analysis on the economy and the industry and the business sectors, the forex market, etc. So the various stakeholders
yes, I'm saying that Kweku possibly would arrive at that position because when government gave everybody the opportunity to come to Senche and discuss these things holistically, they chose to stay out. The Senche report will come out this week, and you will see in it.
Well, Mr. Lowe, somebody will say that that's a very weak argument.
No.
Because before the issues that the Senche consensus or the Senche conference discussed, those issues were there and they needed solutions to them.
Kweku's point is that government should be seen to be doing something about it. And I'm saying that government's first effort is that, look, there is a problem. We have rolled out some program. come and let's all discuss the program and agree whether that is the way to go. If his party chose to stay out, and therefore did not
again,
come, they possibly would not
Mr.
have
Low,
known
you're
what
taking a very partisan view.
No.
Just like I also think that as far as the argument is concerned, Mr. Kwatini also is taking a very partisan view. No. Even though in the thrust of your argument, there's some level of realism and truth as far as we're concerned. Mr. Kwatini, do you think that perhaps we're not very futuristic enough? Perhaps 3-4 years ago, I remember Dr. Mahmoud Baumia in that very lecture he had that generated huge uproar in Ghana, enumerated some of the weakening indicators that will give some pointers to us some few years down the line, way before that very lecture, that, well, there could be some indications that some variables or indicators within the economy will weaken in the course of the next few years. Perhaps we've not been futuristic enough or very proactive enough in trying to arrest some of the difficulties that the economy was facing and would have faced subsequently.
Roland, I think Ghana, sometimes we speak too big English. The problems are basic and we should deal with them in a basic way. There are people of Super Products Limited, Etema, a once very vibrant company. It has collapsed completely and the workers are crying over their severance awards. And the company said, we collapsed. It's not as though I laid you off. We collapsed. Now, I'm sure people in that company and others where employers have indicated they would lay off workers, they want to hear something encouraging from government. NPP didn't go to Senche. It's not a legitimate answer. Speak to those people. I am one person. Speak to those people, the people in Obuasi who are going to be laid off. Speak to them. Roll out the solutions and let them have confidence that we have a leadership that is addressing our concerns. But Kukuhati didn't go to Senche. For me, it's not an answer. That's the first point. The second point, you see, I agree that companies like AGA are part of a global mining industry that is undergoing difficulties because of gold prices, the drop in gold prices. But we've been in worse situations of international gold pricing before. It is your ability to withstand these external shocks that will determine whether your industry in your country is being managed well. AGA has had to get to this because of its own cost build-up, and I'll come to what government ought to be doing and whether we have not been futuristic. Because of its cost build-up, the slightest drop in gold prices now exposes the company. We could have been in a situation where gold price would drop, but they just would keep on, perhaps the profit margins will reduce. Then they can say that we hope gold prices will bounce back and then we can make bigger profits. That's how companies operate. Immediately, gold prices drop to levels that come nowhere near what we have had before, and yet the companies begin to make serious losses month after month that they have to undergo restructuring. Then you know there's something happening. Now, it's coming from the policy environment. Two things government can do. First, I'll deal with the cedi, the fallen value of the cedi. It's making the cost of many of our companies who import raw material, who have cost items that are indexed to the dollar. They have debt obligations in dollar terms because they borrowed outside. And as the cedi deteriorates, the interest payments go up. And it's been so for government. And so they are suffering because of the falling value of the cedi. I've heard people say that, but the cedi has always been falling and it is not our fault. Honestly, I don't believe anymore in blame games. I just think that when there are problems, we want to see our leaders fix the problem. Whether it is global or whether it has always been like that should not be the discussion. The discussion should be, what is it we can do right now? Now, what government can do in respect of the falling value of the cedi is that government must stop overspending its inflows. Immediately, there is a deficit. You must finance the deficit. The Bank of Ghana does it. It's like diluting the money. It falls against the cedi. It's automatic. Unfortunately, your industries that would produce and export so that you can get foreign exchange to shore up your currency are collapsing.
Because they are constrained by certain indicators,
domestic factors.
Yes.
That's the first point. So
like the lack of energy.
Government must curb the over expenditures. And when I mention payments such as SUBA and the rest, it's not just raising an issue that has become politically sensitive.
How do you tie in payments perceived or, so to speak, made to contractors, so to speak,
the things we call
and trying to match them with difficulties that various players within industry are facing?
That's the point I'm making. You see, when government overspends, that over expenditure must be financed. And when you cannot tax
well said, yes.
When people cannot be taxed to finance it, then the Bank of Ghana must come in and finance. They must provide the liquidity. We are diluting your money. That's the economics of it. So your city will fall. When somebody's currency is not being diluted and you keep diluting yours for the same production in your country, you are dropping yours. That's why our city is falling. And until governments, not just this administration, until our governments stop overspending, our city is always going to be weak. That's the first point. The second point is that, you see, power supply. I've heard many government communicators say, well, we have this, we are doing this, and yesterday I heard the Minister for Energy in a program indicate, oh, we have the 10, we have some. Look, Ghana's energy consumption is increasing at a rate of about 11–12% annually. So we can predict in 20–30 years' time, assuming the current rate of increase remains stable, we can predict how much power we will need, say, in 2030. What you want to find out on the supply side is whether there are those strategies that would deliver us the power in a quantitative way. Look, the 10 project that we are, the Jubilee products would produce only 80 million standard cubic feet per day. That cannot even power the generators in Takoradi. But I've heard people, oh, the Jubilee, and we are talking a lot about 10, which is not coming on stream till well after 2017. And what I'm asking, not just government, but perhaps all of us and players of the energy sector is, if we sit down and we look at the interventions and how much they will bring on board, are we able to convince ourselves that will generate the power? Now, 1 minute to conclude on a point about ECG. And because power is such an important element in all this, you see, ECG is a pivot. You can come and produce power, you can have your natural gas, you produce the power, somebody must deliver it to consumers so that you get your investment back. ECG is so cash-strapped, government owes it, many people owe ECG. So ECG has lost its credit worthiness. So investments are not going into transmission. Now, those who are supposed to produce power for us now are saying, if I produce the power, who will take off the power? Who will buy the power and sell to Ghanaians? ECG, they look at ECG and the attraction to come and generate is no more there. I have indicated this to both the finance minister and the energy minister, that they ought to take special interest in ECG's finances. I don't see the strategies right now. They are continuing to have the difficulties. And nobody can tell me. And that is where this point about we have not been futuristic comes in. As we speak, the strategies are not clear, and we ought to set up.
Now, in going forward on the subject of industry and whether the thrust of the argument is the provision of energy being integral to holding the various structures together, whether it's industry, the supply of liquidity or whatever it is that would want to talk within the structure of our economy. At the end of the day is the need for the confidence to be built for the various players within industry. Now, I keep taking my mind back to the subject of SPPC, and just in my lay mind, there are a number of factors that could be attributed to the collapse of Super Paper Products Limited. Because one, the regulatory framework is not strong enough to protect local industries. Two, as far as the competition is concerned, they can't compete with whatever we import into the country. Three, energy generation for daily management of their operations is erratic. Four, as far as attracting a lot more investment locally and attracting credits locally, it is so high for them to go into the market and borrow, and so they can't be recapitalizing as it is. Even looking at these lay indicators, you get to have that any person or industry within Ghana will be suffering.
Roland, I wonder why we are even having this argument and having.
We shouldn't. You don't think it is necessary?
I'm saying that why we are having this argument in this direction, because first and foremost, let's come back to the basics. And Kweku says the problems are basic, and indeed I agree with him. First and foremost, which of these industries, mining, would you say that government has direct day-to-day administration? And Kweku makes the point. He makes my point perfectly when he says that the companies themselves have issues they should have dealt with. They should have, we are talking about futuristic, they should have known that gold prices will not remain like that forever.
Will not be stable for a long time.
Yes, and we will always have an energy challenge. Anybody who is into an area like mining should understand what our energy needs are. I mean, Kweku is talking about the progressive demand for energy. So everybody knows. For me, my joy is the fact that, contrary to what Kweku wants us to believe, there is a clear strategy. The president has outlined a strategy that says that we are going to have energy surplus. He aims at an energy surplus by the end of 2016. That is his promise. We haven't gotten there yet, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And clearly, we are saying that there are several programs and several things being done to achieve that energy surplus. So nobody can sit here and say that we are not looking into the future. At least we are. We know. And everybody who understands economy will know that we would have energy challenges if we don't hurry up, readily get the surplus, so that even where we have all that in it, we need to have surpluses in case there are shortfalls from time to time, so that the energy crisis will be a thing of the past. Now you talk about SPPC. There are many companies like SPPC, and we are all agreed. Every economic discussion we have, we all come to one point and say that, look, we can make the local environment much better than it is now. But let's also say that there are many companies who are also striving irrespective of the challenges because of the way they are managing these things. When Kweku talks about over expenditure being the cause, I don't get it. He should show me 1 year where a government did not run a deficit. But
that's why our city has been falling all over the years.
Take your time. You see, when you are talking about payment for Shuba and other things, we should know that what went into that payment and what were the parameters. It's not just payment that they woke up in the morning and paid. Of course, it has been explained that way, that there was a contractual relationship, and that Shuba had undertaken to increase a certain inflow.
And based on what the inflow is,
they are supposed to be paid for work done.
Yeah.
So all this, you see, that's what I'm saying, that the argument should be put in perspective. Truth be told, that of course, companies are laying off workers. As to whether government should be talking to those workers or not, government have several ways of doing it. We have the labor unions, we have all those. And indeed, it is only here that I see that when there is going to be a layoff, we all think that is the worst thing that happened to any man. It cannot be the case. Why? People are paid severance awards. Do they invest? How do they invest those severance awards to even generate more business in the system?
To make more returns.
Yeah, to make more returns, and also to employ even more people.
Or even develop their own capacity to venture into other career paths.
This morning, I was looking at unemployment figures in some countries. I was shocked to realize that, for instance, South Africa has 53% of youth unemployment.
And Ghana?
Ghana has 8.7.
Who told you?
ILO. Please, I'm using ILO data.
Yeah, but
Nigeria has 13.5.
That is also because our statistics are usually
I'm saying that ILO, how they arrived at their statistics, I don't know.
And you don't care.
And I believe that they are a competent and a reputable international organization, and therefore they will have their structures in place. But bottom line is that even if it's 1%, we shouldn't be happy. We would have all wished that everybody will go to work and come back every day and get something in their pocket. But hey, building a nation is a process. I find this situation where everybody thinks that a president comes in and within 1 year he solves all the problems that have not been solved in 50 years. It cannot happen. It's a process. And when I look at the slow but surely way of doing things, where day in, day out, something is rolled out here, something is rolled out there, I am very happy, you know, that at least we have a system that gradually progresses. I don't disagree with the arguments we are having at all. Because for me, I always say that once we continue to talk about our challenges, we continue to have hope. We continue to
prefer solutions.
Yeah, prefer solutions. But let me also, I'm saying that, you see, government has rolled out a strategy. Kweku may not like the strategy, but I'm saying that is why we call for all stakeholders to come and look at the strategy and see if this is the way to go.
You're going back to the Century
Council. I'm saying that this is the way to go. And people have come. They have given government, you know, the
key pointers.
Yeah, key pointers. And they brought new ideas. And they are happy with what the finance minister has rolled out on behalf of the president. At least, where they need to make variations, suggestions have been made. That is, for me, that is the way we build a country. It is not enough for us to just keep talk.
In America, it's just in the first quarter, after the first quarter, that employment increased for about 2%. But over the last 3-4 years, we've seen excessive redundancies and laydown of workers as a result of the shifts in the labor structures. A lot more companies willing to go to China to undertake their mass productions. And these are things even the Obama administration had to contend with. All over Europe, we've had certain economies that have not been doing well over the last couple of years because of the difficulties they face. So it's not as if it's a peculiar situation to Ghana. If we would have to create a certain condition as far as the basis for argument for the Ghanaian case, where do we remove the politics out of it? Just to look at what's the real substantive issues.
Well, I don't know what you call politics. I never look at these matters in terms of MPP has done better and you have. I've not said that here. And that is why I think it was problematic for George to make the case that which governments have not run deficits. Of course, governments in the past have run deficits. The situation is getting worse, obviously, if you look at the trend. That increasingly our governments are running too much deficits. But it has been, deficit running has been with many of our governments and the NPP, the NDC. It is also the reason our CD has gradually been falling, together with the fact that our export base is narrow. The discussion is not whether under the previous administration it also happened, and the discussion is, so what do? We want to see. You see, you're in government today. I will be happy when MPP is in government for people to ask the MPP this question, that whether it was like that under the NDC or not, you are in government, we want to see your strategy so that we can contribute to it. That is the mode in which I put these questions. So I don't see the politics. Two, let us avoid making incorrect statements such as it's a global phenomenon. At every point in time, you would find countries in the global environment that are not doing well. You will find countries that are doing very well. There are general instances such as the global meltdown from 2007, 2008, where you see clearly a general problem globally. That is not the situation right now. And I can list you many countries whose currencies are appreciating against the international major currency. If you look, Gambia, just Gambia here. Go and look at their currency. So this resort to, oh, it's a global problem. It's uncomfortable for me. But especially so when it doesn't solve the problem. When people have problems, they want solutions. That is why they pay their taxes. And then when people in the management of the state have to respond to those problems, they say it's a global problem. I guess I'm uncomfortable with that. My final point, you see, President Mama and the NDC have been in government for the 6th year. Nobody is saying even over the 6 years, they should have solved all the problems. And let's not say that a government that has been in power for 1 year. The NDC has been in power. This is the 6th year. The strategies that we are asking for, that have delayed, in my opinion, for 6 years, should be put forward. If George says, in respect of electricity, I have narrowed the problem so that their solution and their discussion become easier. I'm saying that I want to know what government is doing about the low credit worthiness of ECG, because unless we fix ECG, the power producers will not come. And in the long term, the supply side issues you raise, that we're doing this, they don't just happen. The policy environment right now, and with the weak position of the ECG, I am saying that those investors will not come and put money in generation. We are seeing that now. As for promises, from November, I remember 2012, we were told that this dumso will stop. We are still in it. At each point, there's a reason. On the one hand, they say, oh, it is West African gas pipeline. When that is fixed, they say it's repairs. Somehow, the problem is continuing. Why? It is because the strategies are not firm and strong, and therefore, the slightest upset, we are in trouble. So my final point is that it's not about whether this government is doing well, better, or no. All I am saying is that when people are getting laid off, Blue Skies Product Limited in Sawom, in the last quarter of 2013, they laid off workers. Do you think that when you lay off workers, because you pay them redundancy packages, then somehow it could be a positive thing? It can never be a positive thing. When companies operate and it has workers, it pays the workers regularly, it pays its taxes and adds to your GDP, then your economy is growing. If that company is forced to shut down or to slow down its production and therefore have to lay off workers, then the law says, in spite of your difficulties as a company, you must find some money and see the workers off. We now want to isolate that scene of arrangement as, oh, something that could be positive and you could invest it. If it was that easy to invest, the mother company would invest. That is definitely not a solution.
That's the end of your argument. We know that even in mass, if there are huge redundancies, it's even lowers consumer spending, etc. So, but as far as we're concerned, you're a member of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, and when you go around, you undertake your work. Now, particularly when we're told excessively, there's a lot more money, just in plain language, that is lost within the disbursement and expenditure processes as far as within the public sector is concerned. That should be a huge worry for you in Parliament.
Well, once again, I mean, yes, it's a worry when we lose so much money. Or you think
it's a rhetoric?
It's not rhetoric. I mean, it's a worry.
That's always been there.
But it's again, it is something that happens everywhere. Virtually every parliament has a public accounts committee for the same reasons that we know that as a human institutions, once you are putting money in people's hands, you expect some supervisory committee, body, whatever you want to call it, to go out there and find out if these things are being properly utilized. So for us, yes, I mean, it is important. But let me just say that Kweku said a lot of things, and I didn't know why he didn't want me to.
No, you can respond to him, yes, and then you talk on the public accounts.
But bottom line is that, you see, we are talking the same language from different perspectives. Like I sit here, nobody will pretend that we are working on bed of roses. I mean, we, as a country, we've had challenges. The president has admitted it. Everybody has said that we are not where we really wish we were. But I am also saying that it is not like somebody goes and sits, and nobody has. That is why I have been very careful also not to say that the NPP did it in their time. Possibly, argument, somebody would have said that, well, if they had done it properly so well, we would have continued. But that is not the argument for today. The argument for today, I agree with Kweku, is what are we doing to resolve right now? And I think that we are doing a lot. I'm saying that Kweku, possibly because he belongs to a different political ideology, may not agree entirely with the strategies that we are putting in place. But we believe that...
We don't see the strategies.
No, but of course, I think that you don't see the strategies. But I think that others have seen the strategies where they think government will not achieve much. They have pointed it out and given also their ideas. The government has been mandated to look at all these things in totality and move the country to a certain degree. And I don't agree with Kweku when he talks that, yes, the NDC government has been in power since 2009. But you see, they've been led by two different people. And at any election, you bring a manifesto based on which Ghanaians will vote for you. So for me, I think that even the Mahama style is different from the Atamis Mill style. That alone shows you what strategies they think they'll use to achieve the same end. We are a social democratic party. We are using that vehicle to move this country forward. But we don't expect that anybody who comes to lead our party should do the same things over again.
Okay,
So
the
I'm
essence
saying
of
that
the last point of the argument is to drown home what?
the fact that
Okay.
The NDC has not been in power for 6 years.
that at least the new man in our leading our party today is doing things the way he thinks he will do things, and
he's doing it.
nobody
This is
can
second year running.
Yeah, nobody can just say that because we've been in power for this long, then the same thing over and over and over again. We did one set of things. We campaigned on that. Ghanaians thought that we were doing quite well. They've renewed, but we are saying that this new man has come with his own vision, John Mahama vision, and his team, and they are doing what he thinks will move this country to the next stage. So we should understand these things in that perspective. I believe that the argument to better our law to go on, all the argument for a differentiation of a CD, some hold true, others are different other factors that will come in. But I am convinced, per the presentation of the governor of the bank and other things, that there is a clear strategy to redeem the city as we've done.
So you have hope? I
have a lot of hope. I have a lot of confidence in this administration.
You have hope because you feel the actions being taken?
Of course. And I'm privy to some of them. I've seen some of them work, and I've seen some being rolled out. You know, but like I'm saying,
it's not everybody. You're so pessimistic.
It's not everybody who agree with the way things are being. I mean, even in Parliament, we disagree to agree. At the end of it, we achieve some.
On Tuesday, the nurses at the psychiatric hospital in Accra, they went on a small protest, I think just within the precinct of the hospital, just because basic drugs to administer to patients were not available. And especially with the type of patients that they treat, it could lead to some level of agitations mentally within the mental patients. And that, as far as their welfare and safety is concerned, is a difficulty for them.
There are many difficult things in many difficult areas. I was very worried when a public accounts committee, for instance, we met the special schools and they were unable to reopen because at the time the funds they were waiting to be released had not been released.
Now have they been released?
I am not too sure. I'll need to speak to them again because I established some degree of rapport with them because of that issue. But you see, what I'm saying is that we all, in totality as a nation, are empowered and also encouraged to get involved in the solutions. We are a nation.
The nurses are supposed to provide their own medicine. What solutions do you want them to do?
What I'm saying is that it is an issue.
I want to get clear your argument.
Mental health has been a problem for all of us. Year in, year out, administration in, administration out. They have been, and I believe that aside all these challenges of the fact that they don't have drugs and things like that, I think that it is only now that we are even beginning to pay attention to the less privileged in our society. It should be a blot on our conscience as a nation. So I think that over time we have put them at the periphery. So now that we are putting them at the center, these things are coming. I mean, I'm very happy. That is why I'm happy that President has moved on and brought social protection as a whole element of a whole core business of a ministry. So that we should now begin to, some of us are very passionate about the less privileged, but I can assure you that, for instance, there are several districts in this country where you have no schools for the mentally challenged, or now they call them
physically.
No, now they call them intelligently or something. The last time they told us a new phraseology that is being used to describe them. But I'm saying that there are people we think of after we have satisfied ourselves, and I think that in a modern society it is no longer acceptable. So I agree with you that those are challenges, and I hope and I believe that the Minister for Health would have looked at that problem by now. The Minister of Education would have solved those other problems. And
Mr. Kwating, as you make contribution to the subject of the protest by the nurses at the psychiatric hospital, I can confidently say those in Ankafo, in Pantan, and the other psychiatric facilities also have same difficulties. Now, how do you also juxtapose that with whether you call them subventions that do go to the appropriate state institutions, delaying for a number of months or quarters, and that ultimately affect daily administration or management of those institutions?
It's a reflection of the financial difficulties we are going through as a country. And I'm happy you have the research work, that it is not just the Pantai all over the place. And indeed, it is not just with nursing. I was in the constituency last month, I visited primary schools, and in one primary school, they said for the whole academic year, money to buy chalk has not come. So if you can get us some money from your common fund to buy chalk, it will help with teaching. Then I told them that unfortunately, my common fund has also not come. Statutory funds, monies that have been collected from the populace already, National Health Insurance Levy have been collected. The law says that after a month, put them in the National Health Insurance Fund and let it be used for National Health Insurance Scheme. Government has collected that money all right. It is in arrears for about 9 months. You go to what? The District Assembly Common Fund, the GET Fund, everywhere we have government inability to release transfers. And as I indicated, you see, you cannot be having the problems, and my good friend is on the Public Accounts Committee. The waste in the public sector is unpardonable. I agree that it is not a today problem, but it is not a reason why we should not fix it, especially now when we're beginning to have unprecedented levels of arrears in almost every government release. The arrears, we've never seen it in this country. 9 months until recently when the District Assembly Common Fund third quarter 2013 was released, we're in arrears for almost a year. Completely illegal.
It's illegal, but
it's illegal.
You're saying it's unheard of?
It's never happened. It's never happened. Almost a year, 3 quarters. In the past, it was a quarter, at the most 2 quarters delay. Then we say, oh, it's a paperwork. Now the money is just not there. Of course, the government should answer to these questions, but I speak of these things to indicate and speak to the question you asked, that why am I pessimistic? The pessimism is not mine. When all the releases are not going for the National Development Planning Commission says our money is not coming. Shrek said our releases are not coming. Government says what? I've been using the money to pay wages. And you ask, for how long is this going to happen? I don't believe that. If we look at the wage issue closely, you will see that that's a percentage of GDP and of our inflows. We have not changed much. We are always hovered around 42%. The point I'm making is that government, one, has to accept that these are unprecedented level of difficulties and put forward those radical reforms. The public sector needs radical reforms so that government expenditure can drop lower than they're doing now. But more importantly, the waste must stop. We must go into the Auditor General's report and not say, as George sought to do, that, well, it's always been like that. Yes, I agree, it has always been like that.
So the waste must stop in the public sector.
If you don't stop the waste, you don't make the savings that you can put in productive sectors of the economy.
How do we start that? We've discussed, I think, across the media, the number of discussions have been undertaken or conducted on this very subject of, well, how do we stop wastage in the public sector? For example, there's a project in the district assembly. How do we make sure that the amounts paid to consultants and the other peripheral activities before the main project starts doesn't even end up taking a large chunk of what the project amount should be? And these are approvals that are made even from the initial ministry before subsequently to the district, etc.
The regulations, the financial controls and the regulations for Ghana are superb. I traveled to...
So is it got to do with enforcement?
It's got to do with enforcement and the political leadership. Look, the SUBA issue. I'm saying how signals are sent to people in respect of what you can or you cannot do in a government. Look, the SUBA issue that George spoke about, quickly, just to illustrate the point I'm making. SUBA and the technical committee, 14 people from GRA, from SUBA itself, and from National Communications Authority and Attorney General's office, came together and made a conclusion that is so fraudulent.
No.
Well, please, if you can let me land.
No, but listen, you see, I do understand. I do understand, and I want us to make a very plain argument that really gives a certain perspective.
Exactly. If you would let me land, you will get a drift.
To what? And I believe that George and I as far as the argument and yourself we've made here, is that there's a certain revenue generation activity, what is expected to be gotten, a certain percentage is supposed to be paid to a certain contractor. Now, how does that dovetail into the perhaps the lack thereof of proper financial management in the public sector? In the execution of certain contracts, in certain duties and in certain areas?
My response is that the financial controls and the regulatory framework are sufficient. The Procurement Act is good.
So why do we fall short?
That's what I was explaining. And if you use the SUBA, for instance,
no, but
quickly, do make that. I don't know why you're uncomfortable. Let me just quickly make that point, then we can. You see, when the committee sat, they said that SUBA was paid because it analyzed the call data records. This is in the, I've read the committee's report. Now, the call data, and I speak as the Deputy Ranking Member for Communications Select Committee of Parliament, the call data records are inbound international calls on which there is no communication service tax. And that's why I call it fraudulent. And I am waiting for, you see, when I speak like this, I'm sensitive to the fact that you could defame somebody. I'm very sensitive, but I'm able to speak confidently because a technical report that says SUBA analyzed call data records that attract no CST in order to establish the CST obligations of the telcos will clearly suggest to you that there's a foul play in there. Now, what does it do? When people in government, they see this at the highest level, then as a municipal chief executive, you think the commitment of the political environment to fight this is not there anyway. So if you also have the opportunity to make something, then you do it. That's why I say political leadership is important. And it's not just the politics of it. I sincerely think that we need a leadership that will transmit it clearly to all its appointees, that this kind of thing will not survive in this administration. If we don't get that, we're in trouble. My final point. Many of the things are also institutional, the waste. For instance, in 2011, when labor, employers, and government met, they said, look, certain institutions can do without government subvention. So take steps and wean them off government subvention, because they should be able to exist on their own. Once the chief executive knows that money is not going to come from anywhere, the little that he gets as IGF, he manages it more well. It's been almost 3 years since why can't government take that step? And here I do not think it's a, I do not know, but I just think it is a certain inertia in government. The other time I called one of the ministers of state and said, look, the mood in the country now and the desire to save, to cut the waste and to save, make savings. If you do this thing, you are not going to get criticisms even from the opposition, because this is something that has been said over and over again. And me, as a member,
and you feel that is that step, those steps have not been taken.
In addition to being sincere and honest with the management of public funds, government must also exercise the courage and the boldness to do the reforms that are needed. Without that, we will be stuck where we are.
First and foremost, let me just disassociate myself from the fact that Kweku talks about some reports being fraudulent, because
I said the transaction,
yeah, well, I'm saying
the
that
payment.
Being that committee is made up of people, possibly I don't know any of them, but possibly with some reputation. I don't want to be the one to tarnish people's reputation. I believe that they have presented a report. We may disagree with the report, but as to whether what they did was probably, I cannot. And
because I was asking him a question on that, and he says that he wants to vouch and put his reputation on the line.
Nobody will come on this because it's so embarrassing for them.
No, for me, I mean, I don't want anybody to just kind of sit down and talk about me in certain terms. So
I'm not mentioning anybody's name. I'm saying that the report,
because the committee is made up of human beings. And you mentioned the organization to which they belong. So obviously those faces can be put to people. So I don't.
So if the outcomes are fraudulent, you can say.
I'm saying that you hold that opinion. I do not hold. I don't want to share in that opinion. That's what I'm saying.
But I've not said you shared in it.
Now, secondly, you see, when we are talking about public administration or administration of public funds, you see, it's easy for you when you don't have all the picture to just say that maybe the political leadership is not committed to fighting corruption. Look, As I go around, I am still, in fact, from here, I'm going straight to Cape Coast to continue our sittings with the Public Accounts Committee. In fact, they started yesterday, but I had to do something in Parliament. So, the kind of things we are seeing has nothing to do with whether the president or the political leader. We are seeing headmaster school will deduct 5% money that should go to government, and he keeps it. Tax will be deducted from traders, and it will be kept.
And no sanctions.
You see, we have problems where GRA in itself, somebody is now forced to come and pay tax. They don't charge any penalty. These are huge sums of money. As at the time we were living in Kofodia, when we computed it, we were getting to about 1 million cedis, just headmasters. Collectively. And we are going to do Western and Central.
Yeah.
You may go, and these are the little things that are running us down.
And that was what I wanted Kweku to focus on. But he wanted to focus on the key political
you don't need
arguments.
Yes, these are cost centers under a ministry.
Supervised by somebody.
We are saying
that's
that.
the point.
No, we are saying that, look, that is why the public...
other than will be...
No, but that is why the Public Accounts Committee is there.
Head. That's all I want.
And I'm saying that that is why the Public Accounts Committee is there. We are happy that at least all these monies have been paid to government. Just once we write to them, they know they are appearing, they rush to go and pay. Some, we order them to go and pay, and they go and pay and bring our receipts. So, I mean, it's part of the system of solving these things. But, you know, Kweku is making one very dangerous issue. This issue about, I don't know when, but I know that the most recent stakeholder meetings on salaries and payments and organizing was done in Ho, and it was less than a year because I was a member.
It's not less than a year.
I was a member of Parliament, and it was the president gave to address it on the fair wages thing.
No.
We may be talking about a different forum. I'm saying the most recent, yes, that issue about winning people of subvention has been there, and it's been operationalized. But you don't do it in a day. You don't even do it in a year. If you are taking University of Ghana off subvention, do you know what it means? It means you are taking off a huge chunk of the administrative expenses, and before then you should ensure that whatever is coming in should be able to take care of it. So the analysis is ongoing. Gradually people will be weaned off. And don't forget, once we continue to wane off people, you have to lay off people. He is shouting out Obuasi, Ashanti Gold, and others laying off people. This, we need also to downsize. If we are going to take people off subventions, it means that the money that you come to...
It means within those public agencies, they would need to efficiently make sure that
people
as
are
far as the daily overhead costs are concerned.
So he has a lot of problems that government will have to confront. And the government will not wake up one Friday morning drinking tea and then decide that we are putting people off convention. It has to be done. It has to be done systematically. It has to be done looking at the figures and being teleguided properly, so that it doesn't cause
feasibility.
Yes, so that in as much as we want public efficiency, we shouldn't sacrifice social existence for public. It's a pari passu thing. We'll do it side by side until such a time that we all come to an agreement. So those arguments, that's what I'm saying, that it's a process. So it is difficult for me to accept that, yes, we all know the solutions. Nobody in this country, but the solutions must have the necessary strategies.
Are you very much confident with the solutions that we're now implementing now?
Roland, I am saying that we started the implementation of that 6 months ago, 3 months ago.
It's not just being hopeful, but you're confident that at the end of the day, these are measured results that will come out with measured outcomes.
The Minister of Finance has laid out a roadmap. Gradually, one item after another, it's coming on stream. Okay? What we must do is collectively support the minister to achieve these things. We are somewhere. We target at reaching a certain destination. We started our journey. It will not happen by just taking one step and then we get there. So we should, as a nation, begin to just scrutinize the strategies and bring ideas. There may be different ideas, but maybe as we go along, and that's what I was happy with the Senje Forum that says that henceforth, we should always find where we have reached, and then whichever government comes to succeed, we should make it as a policy that look at the roadmap. You may use different strategies, but make sure that we are working towards a common purpose as a nation. That is the only way we can build this nation. It will not be built by me, Kweku and I shouting at cross purposes 24/7. It can only be built when we are talking like we are talking. He's bringing his ideas, we are bringing our ideas. At the close of the day, it's only one person who has been given a mandate for 4 years to achieve some of those things. If Ghanaians are not happy in 2016, they will say, well, you haven't lived up to the expectation. Let another person come. and take a different strategy, and let's see how it proceeds.
And on the set of the economy, I know you want to make a conclusion. I should make a conclusion to that. The president had been to, is it the Burma camp, to meet top generals of the army, and well, very confident that the economy will turn around.
I hope so. Of course, where we are...
You listened to the president when he met?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I hope so. Where we are, if there's no turnaround, we're heading for trouble. So we need a turnaround. And if the president
Do you have the conviction that the turnaround will...
At the moment, I don't see the strategies, and I speak sincerely.
Not with any political connotations.
Whatever it is, I don't know what you call politics. You see, the reason I keep going back to the corruption and to name things that have been done in the SUBA committee as fraudulent and you disagree is that we like to play around the surfaces. Everybody knows that waste and corruption are important reasons why we are where we are. And if we're not willing to deal with it because we would say it is what, politics, it's up to us. When people sit in high places, they must make decisions that will divert resources into the most productive sectors of the economy and into our lives. If they do the wrong things and we think they will say it's politics, so don't touch it, that is okay. But going forward, George keeps saying that the strategies are there and it's okay. I think we should isolate them. And that is why I name specific things that require attention. In the energy sector, I've named ECG. Is government going to pay its debts, clear its indebtedness to ECG by what time? The other people owing ECG, and those ECG are owing, as a result of which our energy sector does not get the kind of confidence and support it has. What clearly, I want to clearly.
How much do you think government owes ECG?
You say?
How much does
I do not have the figures.
I'm saying that I know that government has paid a huge chunk of how much it owes ECG. So no, let's put that in perspective. A huge chunk.
I think after the first one there was some clearance, but it's still...
No, I'm saying that a huge chunk, and then...
Look,
let's make this point.
I'm even saying that if government has done that, in the end, all we want to see is ECG with clear books, so that they can go out and attract investments into transmission. It is until we see that ECG, you can argue that, oh, government has done this, government has done this. If ECG continues to be in this, we'll have problems. I also think that the state, the political leadership must begin to radiate a certain sense to all political operators that where we are, when we are not able to make transfers for the buying of chalk in basic school, that certain things will just not be tolerated. That signal must go out. Again, I am not seeing it. I'm not seeing that signal. I want people in the various local governments and in the MDAs to be afraid that we have a president and a government that will not tolerate these things. If we get it, I'll be happy.
The president wants the military to tackle Boko Haram and, of course, just all in a bit to protect the frontiers of the country.
I agree with him. I mean, on foreign policy, I think we should all have an attitude of backing our leadership. And what Boko Haram has done in Nigeria, it's not something anybody will wish on any country. And we urge the president to join his colleagues in the sub-region to confront this, not just dealing with the current issue, but also engaging with the underlying issues that seem to bring about this kind of conflict in Nigeria and elsewhere. So on that, I agree with the president. We must act tough and signal that as a sub-region, we can deal with some of these matters ourselves. My information, and we're getting it from the media, is that the Nigerian government has made progress in engaging with the militants, Boko Haram, and hopefully we should be hearing some good news. I was particularly glad to hear that the girls were still alive and that now they knew where they were and arrangements are being made to get their release. I am happy about that, and I support the president in this.
Well, yeah, let me I'll just say then I assure Kweku and all his people who have said the fears, the kind of fears that he says he has, that look, we have a president who is on top of his job. We have a president who radiates sincerity, The president who is no nonsense, and it is manifest. We have people in court today, the JIDA issue and other people from our government who we have put before court to go and answer questions, sends the signal that he is not going to sit there and just allow things to happen.
Your party people,
he has lots of other things in the bench. He has a whip. He has a whip. He's willing to crack when it becomes necessary. When it becomes necessary, at least we are happy that he would not condone anything. He has shown it in many ways, and he himself has given the commitment that he is going to be to ensure that Ghana gets the best out of everything that now. I am also confident that the president is on top of our international relationship with other countries, and indeed in other issues like the Boko Haram. You remember that he was immediately he became the chairman of he's taking up the mantle, and one of the first things he's done is to ensure that some real action is taken on this Boko Haram thing, and he's been to his men to inspire them as commander-in-chief, to say to them that he's ready to give them whatever it takes to enable them protect the integrity of this country, the territorial integrity, and I am very happy that he is being proactive. Okay. He's not waiting for the action to come to us. We are getting ready.
Okay, I have to end the discussions for the morning, but I wanted to touch on Akufo-Addo. Well, according to a youth group in Greater Accra, it said he should go unopposed. Well, I think I hear you're one of the personalities who've been supporting that very move by the youth group of the Greater Accra.
Well, I have not been supporting the youth group. I mean, I think Nana Addo will win the primaries. I think Nana Addo presidency will be good for this country. But I do not like the kind of atmosphere that seems to suggest that even if you want to challenge him, please don't do it. I mean, I don't think it's healthy for the party. I urge the youth to be more measured in their support for Nana Addo. I support Nana Addo. I have no difficulty expressing that, but I worry about signaling that the environment is not democratic enough to entertain those who think otherwise. In any case, Nana Addo will win the primary, so we don't have to worry.
Well, MPP business as usual. They always say they are the doyen of democracy, but clearly, year in, year out, it shows that they don't really believe in democratic, because I can't see why you want to stop other people from contesting.
Has anybody stopped anybody?
No. I mean, they got the youth and send signals to people that
are the youth the leadership of the party.
They run a core group of the party. At least we are on record. We are on record to allow our president to be contested, sitting president. So Ghana is, Ghanaians people, can choose between
the people did worse things. You remember?
That's the end of our discussion. Discussing a whole lot of issues. My guest for the morning, Kweku Kwarteng, Member of Parliament for Boase West, and vividly worried about the redundancy, expected to hit over 2,000 workers off.
And then advocates for more reduction.
Obuasi Mines for more Bangladesh Ashanti. And George Law is a Member of Parliament for North Dye. He's a member of the NDC as well. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen. We hope to have you sometime in the studio. I love the pair of you.
We'll come again.
We'll come again. Okay, so that way.